here because for us this is existential war. For Ukraine, this is our war, and all that Ukraine is trying to do, that the first war for Ukraine will become the last war for Russia. We had a Sudanese man come over to us and he says, can you tell me more about what they are doing in Sudan, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Central African Republic? Because I didn't hear about this in the news. I said, well, the things that I tell you is from Russian news. They are not even from BBC or a Western world. And we're going to have another war rally passing us by. And before they pass us by, we're going to have a minute of silence for every single Ukrainian child, especially those that got slaughtered as early as this morning, for the kids who got killed in Kryvyi Rih, from 3-year-old to, I think the oldest one was 15. There was a boy and a girl who were in love. They were just outside of their house, and they both got killed and they were buried together. So they just stay forever together. This is what we are dealing with, tragedy after tragedy. We're going to have that minute of silence now, and we're going to lower our flags. Thank you so much.
А тут буде кінець. Там ні, не там стане, не там.
А що вони чому не вдарили?
Тому що мені поліція.
UK government, UK government, shame on you, UK government, UK government, shame on you, shame on you.
Which country you are? Ghana?
Ethiopia.
Huh?
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia?
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна.
Понад усе!
Україна.
Понад усе!
Україна.
Понад усе!
І нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
We were just paying respects because the protest that passed us by, they did it in silence, and we respect anyone's struggle, especially when their posters are saying that there is a genocide in their country, the same way there is a genocide in our country, the same way that Russians have committed war crimes in Syria for more than a decade. And I don't understand how in 2025 we can have a conversation with someone from Sudan saying what are Russians doing with Sudanese people, what are Russians are doing in Mali, what are Russians doing in Burkina Faso, what are Russians doing in Niger, what are Russians doing in Central African Republic. And all we are trying to explain to you that since Putin announced that Wagner is fully funded by Russia, between $3 and $4 billion they pay to Wagner to commit war crimes from Africa to Middle East, from Middle East to Europe. All those war crimes are on Russian government because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state!
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state!
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia! Stop the war!
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia! Stop the war!
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals!
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals!
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia!
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia!
And you can see the contrast between Ukraine not hitting oil refineries for since middle of March until this 30 days will be over. I promise you, there is no doubt that when the 13 days will be over, there will be 50 plus drones flying towards any oil refinery. Ukrainians have developed a drone that can fly more than 1,300 kilometers now. It's almost like unmanned jet, bomber jet, and like This is why more than 95% of Ukrainian drones are produced in Ukraine. We have our friends in NAFO who are helping us with the drones. We are having our Portuguese volunteers raising funds for the drones. We have our Lithuanian friends helping us to raise funds. We have our Scottish friends. We have our Polish friends. Tell me who are your friends and I will tell you your values. So when Putin told you a week ago from a submarine that Ukraine is run by Western powers, and a week ago he said, okay, how about we decide United Nations are our friends, Russian friends, yeah? So they want United Nations sit down with North Korea, with Iran, with Russia, and they want to decide who and how the Ukraine will be governed. It's not gonna happen, because a dictatorship is fighting democracy. Dictatorship cannot tell to democratic countries how they need to be run, because they don't have values that we fight for. They don't have values that we are putting our lives on the line, and my cousin Sergey is on the front line since December of 2023 now, more than a year now. And this is why this is personal for us. I don't know a single Ukrainian who doesn't know someone from their family or from their friends who have been killed by Russians. For them, it's just a paycheck war. And not a single employer in Russia pays more than the mercenary killing of Ukrainians being hired by Russian government to kill Ukrainians. For us, this is existential war. For us, this is our first war. For Russia, this is just another war that they are raging in another country. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
And I'm very grateful that John touched on the subject about the music, about the culture, about the language. Because yes, for Russians, their language is a weapon. Yes. Because even my brother Michael, he put a t-shirt in 2000, hands off our schools. A Ukrainian boy in Latvia is putting a t-shirt that he doesn't want Russian schools to close, but he does not live or study in Ukrainian community. No, he's studying there. Even Aya was saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? What did you just say? More than 150,000 Polish speaking were deported from Lviv region during 1940s? What do you mean? My husband is Polish, he doesn't know that. Well, they called it Ukrainization by bringing Russians from the mainland of Russia to any region that they occupy to dilute the local population. Holodomor, like John touched on that. The only country that does not recognize Holodomor is the country that committed Holodomor. Have a look online. They said they were poor crops. Where is Volodya? Volodya is over there. You can come over to him and ask him. His mom is still alive. His mom was alive during Holodomor, and she said to her son, son, we were stealing crops from our fields. She is an eyewitness. Don't worry what USSR communists are telling you. That Orthodox religion this year is illegal. So they shot him with a firing squad. On my mom's side, and the Ukrainian government sent us apology letter. Thank you so much. My granddad, my great-granddad is shot, but Ukrainian government in the 90s took responsibility for the communist Ukrainian government 100 years ago. On my mom's side, kulaks. We had too many cattle, we had too many horses. So they took more than 150 of our horses, more than 200 of our cows. They took everything, they left us one chicken and one cow. So when we borrowed the horse to plow our field in Ukraine in the 90s, said to my granddad, what are the odds that we are borrowing we are borrowing the offspring of our own horse. He goes 99.9%. No one had more horses than our family. They left us with nothing. What do they do now 100 years later in Ukraine? Steal, rape, destroy. Steal, rape, destroy. What did they do in Ukraine 100 years ago? Rape, steal, destroy. What did they do in Germany in 1944-45? Rape, destroy and loot. More than 1.7 million Ukrainian historical artifacts got stolen from occupied regions and being sold on a black market. I found out that today, and guess who is aiding those sales? Russian politicians. This is why we are fighting for existence. We are fighting for our identity, because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
And as Moldovan president said more than a year ago, that the peace for Ukraine means peace for Moldova. I repeat the words of democratically elected president of Moldova, that Ukrainians are fighting for their peace, and their peace is a peace for Moldova, because God forbid Ukraine falls. Moldova will be next. It's not my words. This is what their media is saying. They call it unfinished business. And then they were even mocking, I think it was last year, they were mocking, they were saying, I wonder how many nukes it will take to level up Poland. They don't like that Poland is helping Ukraine, because there is nothing between Russia and Poland except for Ukraine. There is nothing between Moldova but Ukraine. This is why for Ukraine to fall is for democracy to fall. For Ukraine to fall is being the biggest loss in European history for democracy, peace and freedom. And this is why you will hear us say, help Ukraine protect peace.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And I'm not gonna give you an answer, but I'm gonna ask you a question. Ask yourself, when the Syrian regime was falling last year, and Russia had so much presence, one of their navy contracts was to be in Syria until 2049. It's 2024 was last year when the Russians left Syria. Ask yourself, why Russians could not send more troops for that regime to continue to torture their people? Because of Ukraine. Because of Ukraine. Why Sweden and Finland can't afford not to be in NATO? Because of what Russians are doing in Ukraine. How much of Finland land did Russians grab in 1939? How much land they grabbed of Moldova in 92? About 20%. Georgia in the 2008, 20%. They stand right now on about 20% of Ukraine, but they want 25, because if you ignore terrorists, they will take whatever they can get away with, because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
And I will just remind that on Easter Sunday there won't be any war rallies, and on London Marathon Sunday, the following Sunday, we will grab some Ukrainian flags, and we're gonna have our war veterans, amputees, running a London Marathon, raising some money, and we're gonna support them. So we're not gonna have war rally next 2 Sundays. Easter Sunday, definitely we will just we just canceled it for family reasons, and people need to be with their loved ones. And this is why it's so important that our presence here is shown, especially international presence, especially of our friends. Some of our friends, they were from Hong Kong, but they come from Manchester once a month just to hold the Ukrainian flag above our heads, and they support us. This is why we have our Scottish, Portuguese, Brazilians, Lithuanians, Latvians, you name it. So many different nations are united under the same struggle, especially the Lithuanians. Vitas, did you want to say something? And we're gonna have our Lithuanian friend who was born like me under occupation, and less than half of his life lived in a more than half of his life lived in a free Lithuania, and this is why it's so precious that democracy wins. Slava Ukraini!
Hi, hello everyone. I think I'll
Здорово,
just
стріма.
repeat bits
Із
which
ждачим жваню,
John,
де
with
він
his,
русий.
British and Polish roots said, and
YouTube.
Jurko with a lot of experience of
Baltic.
living in the Baltic states and then living in this country. I do understand totally the language question. There was a time when speaking Lithuanian in Lithuania was banned, when you could not publicly do it. That was when the Tsar regime, occupied, first did the partition of a Polish and Lithuanian Commonwealth in the end of the 18th century, and then in the 19th century there were rebellions both in Poland and Lithuania, and the reaction by the Russian imperial forces was to ban culture, to ban universities, to ban schools, and to ban the language. So there was a period in the 19th century when the smugglers from Russia, from what is now, basically what was then Germany, were smuggling not, some other products, they were smuggling in books
Žingsnių skaičiuoju, tai 25 000 per dieną.
And that contraband, those books, where if someone was caught selling the book or buying the book in Lithuania, that was a prison sentence for those people. So this is how, this is a modus operandi by the Russian Empire for years, for decades, for centuries. The things that they are now doing in the occupied regions of Ukraine, in Donetsk, in Luhansk Oblast, in Zaporizhia, in Kherson, in those places which are occupied, and of course in the Crimean, the ban on Ukrainianness, on anything which is linked with the Ukrainian state, the Ukrainian language, the Ukrainian culture, the libraries, and of course we should not forget in the Crimea, the repressions which Crimean Tatars are being subjected for more than a decade already since the occupation of the Crimea happened. So this cultural oppression is part of what Russian imperialism is doing for centuries. This is nothing new for them, and this is how they occupy the lands, they expel the local people, they ban their culture, and then of course the settlers come in many cities in the Baltic states, in the capital cities, let's say, of Estonia and Latvia, in Riga and Tallinn. The Russian population is now at around 35-40%. And why is that? It's just because this was the colonization. They could not, colonize and make the population of Latvia, Estonia majority Russian. At least they did it with the capital cities. So it's really important for Ukrainians to keep their national identity. What is really important now for us Europeans here in free Europe is to see this and to see the Russian imperialism and to resist it in every possible way. Here in London, in the next couple of months, there will be opera performance in the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden And the singer in that, one of the best opera houses in the world, the main singer will be a woman whose surname is Netrebko. She is Russian. She is Putin's supporter. She has been photographed with Putin. She has been photographed with the leaders of the Donbass pro-Russian forces. She has, been wearing this, the Georgian cross thing or whatever the Russians are calling it. So she has been very clearly in sort of a Putinista camp. When the full-scale war broke out, this Netrebko was thrown out of the Metropolitan Opera of New York because she did some sort of a declaration, half-hearted declaration, that she's against all wars in the world and she doesn't support war. She never mentioned in that, that this is a Russian aggression war against Ukraine. She never really condemned it, and that's why in the US, New York Opera Metropolitan decided to terminate the contract and throw her out. But, Russians being Russians, she quickly found a flag of convenience. She got an Austrian passport, and hey presto, she's no longer Russia, she's an Austrian. And she's singing in Salzburg Opera right now, and after that, she's coming here to London. So there is a way for us, as people who are here in London, the Britons, the Ukrainian British, the European British, to protest against it. After the rally, I invite anyone who wants, please come here to me. I'll generate a QR code. We have written letters to the Royal Opera House to stop this. We have made petitions. We have asked quite a few organizations here in London, both Ukrainian organizations or the British Ukrainian organizations, or those who are supporting Ukraine, to sign this petition, and it has been done already. But the response we got from the Royal Opera House was just half-hearted, like, oh yes, Netrebko has condemned, the war, and that's good enough for us. Well, we can make it a little bit more uncomfortable for the Royal Opera House with more petitions, pressurizing them to change that decision. If it has been, done in New York by the Opera of New York, by the Metropolitan, this could be done by the Royal Opera House. And furthermore, Royal Opera House did try to show some solidarity with Ukraine. For several months, actually, they were supporting the Ukrainian choir and the whole project of Songs for Ukraine. So after that, to take this decision and invite a Russian opera singer to sing in front of the British crowd is something unacceptable. And this is what Russia tries to do in many other forms. Sports is another. They claim that sports is apolitical, and they are right now pushing for the Russian teams to be back on the international sports arena. This has to be, we have to stop this, because if they can normalize this, that, culture and sport is back and Russia is back in those, this will be normalization of what they do, in Ukraine, the war crimes they commit. And the war crimes they commit is not just against, the fighters, the Ukrainian army soldiers. They commit war crimes, and we've seen it just several hours ago in Sumy, where the civilians were brutally slaughtered. Children among them, at least 2 kids lost their lives. And they do it by bombing. The Russians are bombing kindergartens, they're bombing the libraries, they're bombing the hospitals. This is what Russia does. And to claim then, okay, the sportsmen or sportswomen or the culture people of Russia should be allowed to the Western arenas or to the Western opera houses is just top of hypocrisy. So we should be active in spotting this Russian, cultural imperialism and not just spotting it, but stopping it.
довго.
That's what I wanted to say. So let's be vigilant, and when we see this, let's really be active in trying to stop this at its tracks. Thank you very much, and Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Thank you, Vikas. Yeah, and there's lots of violinists. It takes sometimes up to like 15 minutes to find out that violinist, because they try to change their nationality. You heard, I think it was a week ago, Ovechkin, he made his career in the West, and he says, Russia, we did it. Like, who you playing for? Who pays you? Where you made your success? I wonder how much money and how much career he would make in Russia. Russians were not banned in international sports because of the war in Ukraine. They were banned long before that. Russians medaled in the Olympics game, the Winter Olympics that they hosted. They were medaling with doping, and they had the biggest doping scam, and no one trusts Russian athletes. So this is why they changed nationalities, because while being war criminals, they consider themselves as victims. Why are you punishing us? We are just not into politics. We don't really care who is getting killed by those Russians who are in military. We must support our government regime because we don't know any better. So you can't be a war criminal and a victim. You can't be a war criminal and a victim, yet they claim this victimhood because, yeah, but if I condemn Putin, my family will suffer. Guess what? In USSR, so I was told by many people, if anyone wants to leave USSR, they will leave only, for example, the husband will leave, but the wife and the children will stay in USSR. The whole family can't go to the West. No. So if you don't come back, there will be repercussions for your family. Same thing in North Korea. But in Russia, even today, if anyone speaks against Russian regime, there will be repercussions for your whole family. So nothing changed in last 34 years with Russians, because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 We were asked by our soldiers and by our embassy not to criticize those who promised us aid, especially America. But when I saw a few days ago an American politician being happy to see Putin and put his hand on his heart, how happy is he to see him? For me it was so disgusting. Like, I'm just saying for myself, not for Support Ukraine or Euromaidan, you are meeting a wanted war criminal since 2023, 17th of March. Putin is a wanted criminal. And you go like, oh my goodness, it's that wanted man who kidnapped the biggest amount of children in human history. He went on national television in 2022 and he said, yes, we have taken more than 19,500 children. They are orphans. How did they become orphans? Because they had parents, but like Eugene's mom was killed in Mariupol during the bombing. She just lived in a flat. It was not an army base. More than 90% of everything they bomb is civilians, hospitals, and civilian targets. They are nothing but scumbag terrorist invaders. They are generational war criminals. This is an undisputed historical fact. And more than a dozen of nations, from Africa to Middle East, from Middle East to Europe, can testify to that today. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 This is why we gather here. And we've been gathering here on and off since 2014. I passed this war rally in 2014, and I will mention that as many times as I can, that I'm ashamed that I was passing by Tolia, Mikhailo, they were standing over there. They were standing here for 30 days and 30 nights in 2014 because they knew that this is just the beginning. For me, I thought Russians took Crimea, surely this is over. I agreed with the narrative. Yeah, it's complicated. Crimean Tatars, there was a war 100 years ago. There was one kind of people living there. Then it became part of Ukraine, and now Russians took it back. It's very complicated. It's not complicated today. Russians have not stopped since February of 2014. They wanted just Crimea in 2014. Now they want 4 regions. Two and a half, 3 years ago they wanted 2 regions. They occupy about 70%, 65 to 70% of those 4 regions that they want. They already wrote them into their constitution, and they demand that Ukrainians leave Ukraine because it's against Russian constitution. They demand that you lift sanctions for them to stop breaking one Geneva Convention. When they bomb hospital, Ahmadiyya in the past, they broke 2 Geneva Conventions. Every time they use low precision ammunition from North Korea, bombing us.
Пошли вы нахуй, суки ебаные, чтоб вы сдохли, блядь.
Numerous Geneva Conventions, when they are torturing our prisoners of war every single day, especially as
Прости, я не хотел, прости.
they are breaking numerous
Это
Geneva
я говорю все, что я думаю о вас. Вы уёбки, блядь.
Who run out of Geneva Conventions that they haven't broken. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Слава Україні! Героям слава! Донецьк – це Україна, і Крим – це Україна.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
And this is why Britain and Norway this week announced $500 million for air defense and for drones. I believe Norway had a separate, I think between $200 and $300 million. Imagine every single defense budget in Europe is going up. Why? Why do we need to have more of an independence military from America, buying, manufacturing and making our own weapons? Why Canada is rethinking why it's a bad idea to rely on America so much? Because as America proven this earlier this year, that if they change their mind, they can break their agreement. If you change your mind, if we sign an agreement, if you promise to protect a biggest country in Europe, and then you say, nah, I will stop aid and then I will restart it again. Forget about Ukraine. Forget about Ukraine. What does that statement says to Canadians? What does that statement says to Europeans? Why not relying on America to protect yourself is important. Europe, our GDP in Europe supersedes Russian GDP. Our economy, our technology, everything supersedes Russian. They are microchips. Microchips, I would put in big air quotes, is between 15 to 18 years behind. While even your old iPhone has a 4 nanometer chips, they are struggling to make even 10 or 15 nanometer chips. They say, we're gonna replace import by something local. When they say something local, they mean Chinese. So the Chinese chips microchips and Chinese components or something that they smuggle through other countries, American microchips. North Koreans fighting in Kursk from 6th of August last year for 7 months. If I tell you a year ago or 2 years ago, or in the spring of 2022, that Ukrainians will fight North Koreans for Russian land, you will say to me, surely you are mad, this is madness. How is it possible? Because they are running out of men. We will never run out of will to fight for freedom, because for us this is existential war. For them it's just another war. But Russia is not a Ukrainian problem. When they blackmail the whole world, when they want you to do what they want you to do, they are saying that your values do not exist, that your laws do not apply to them. When a Malaysian plane got downed by Russian anti-air missile in 2014, hundreds of people died. They found out who was guilty. Did anyone go to prison? One person. Did they go because they killed hundreds of people? No. They went to prison only because the man who was put in prison just because he spoke against Putin. So if you speak against the regime of Russia right now, political regime in power, then you will go to prison because it's against the law. But if you down a civilian plane and kill, I think it's about 200 international people, all civilians from all over the world, that for Russians is a normal thing. This is not even a war crime. Zelensky recently said that soon that will be around 200,000. It's more than 180,000 war crimes that they committed in Ukraine, and they will commit more. For Russians, war crime is trademarked from Africa to Middle East, from Middle East to Europe. So this is not a Ukrainian problem. This is a world problem, because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
And I don't know how about you, but me, I'm being forced to be here. I don't want to be here, but because Ukraine, regardless of where I was born, my parents come from a same small village in Khmelnytsky region, and I spent every summer of my childhood and my teen years in Ukraine. It was the best time of my life. The best food I ever tried was Ukrainian food. I can go anywhere in the world, but before this war and pandemic, I've been to Hawaii, I've been to America, I've been to all over Europe. But the country that I visited the most was not a European country or anywhere on the other side of the world. I have friends in Australia, but yet the biggest visited country for me was Ukraine and Kiev. Theaters and our culture, this is what I love. Even if growing up in Latvia, I can understand between 70 to 80% of Ukrainian, 20% of the Ukrainian words I cannot understand. I ask my friends to help me to understand, because of the decision of my parents that they decided, yes, we will just adopt whatever is the easiest. Yes, okay, they want us to speak Russian, we will speak Russian. Well, even after the full-scale invasion, I got happy birthday messages in a Russian language from some of my family members. And I said, how long you gonna speak the word of people who colonized you? The people who killed your great-grandparents, the people who stole from your grandparents, the people who oppressed you, your parents, in 3 or 4 generations, the people who, for them, your identity is offensive. They call Ukraine New Russia. They call Baltic countries New Russia. They call us delusional. One Ukrainian general said that Ukrainians just need to be re-educated. They are confused, the Russians. Ukrainians are confused Russians. Okay, let's go with that statement. How many wars have Ukraine waged since 1991? So that if the peace is being confused, if not having any wars being nicknamed the breadbasket of Europe is being confused, I would be confused for the rest of my life. If democracy is being confused, if peace and freedom of speech is being confused, who of those two nations is delusional? Ukrainians, for whom this war is first, or for Russians who run out of countries that they haven't attacked. And this is why this is so important. Please come to these war rallies every Wednesday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours and every Sunday at 3 o'clock for 2 hours. If we are not here, if the Whitehall is occupied, we will be in Parliament Square. If we gather anywhere else like St. Volodymyr's Monument in Holland Park, we will announce it on social media. This war rally is important because being able to speak freely is a luxury that Russians cannot relate to. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Дякую.
Україна! Україна! І нашим захисникам тричі. And now we're going to have our national anthem, and I will remind you that even our national anthem is an ode of our struggle against those who oppress us, and ironically, 100 plus years, last 100 plus years, our national anthem basically is a definition of our struggle against Russians and us trying to be and stay free. Thank you so much.
Ні слава, ні воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
І нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Дякую за вашу підтримку.
Коли я був маленький, я не знав, де я живу. І мені мало, що моє село і
Я хочу запитати, звідкиля ви з якої частини? А ви? Полтава?
My bankruptcy. You understand? Everything that I gave away. You understand bankruptcy? This is a document. I have zero money. Right? This is what I did. This is the first time I showed this. You support when there's something going into the rallies,
Can you say something in Portugal language in the live stream? In Portugal. Oh. Okay, one more time. Дубль 2. Okay, one more time. Дубль 2. Portugal. Portugal.
A todos vocês da Ucrânia, eu desejo muita felicidade, muita calma, muita paciência, porque nada é para sempre. Logo, logo essa guerra vai terminar e vocês vão ser muito mais felizes do que os russos lá que vivem na miséria e na desgraça. Slava Ucraina!
Героям слава. Так. Так, так. І кацапи сюди йдуть, пишуть. Кацапи.
Як читати, їх подобається. Лайки.
Я блокую, щось не блокую, але
Вони пишуть в основному.
всяку заразу.
Про війну щось пишуть.
Так. Пишуть, що треба здаватись і стати росіянами. Тоді все закінчиться.
Бо ми живемо на рік.
Так, браття.
Не вбивають
Так.
братів своїх, щоб менше було.
Таке.
Цікаво. Так це в Ютубі ти маєш
Так.
канал.
Так.
А в Телеграмі не маєш?
Ні,
Я думаю, що
Телеграма не маю.
В Телеграмі, да. Я також не маю. Там в Телеграмі просто більше молоді тусується, більше кацапів тусується. Там можуть просто заблокувати.
ВКонтакті
Але все
можна
одно.
писати. Так.
Хай
Треба.
якісь справи.
Ну окей.
William is a big supporter of Ukraine. Goes to Ukraine frequently. He's the leader of many of us belong to this Ukraine front. So we finance via a bunch of enthusiasts in Kiev doing the drones and then sending to the good places in the front line and other places. So Liam is the brain of the whole program.
I remember when the Lithuanian collected first $1 billion to buy drones.
Yeah, the Bayraktar. No, the drones they do is the smaller ones. Maybe bigger as well. No, it's usually Mavics and
yeah, it costs about $350.
I believe the last project was also about small drones.
yeah. Because now those are, and I'm hearing that there are these big projects about in Ukraine of the swarms of drones where it's one operator launches the whole spear the whole swarm, and that's how it works.
Герей, а что тогда уж по кальбе посмотрим. Окей.
Actually,
We always, as we always say, the Amhara people are dying. This has to be stopped. And the whole world, you need to act now. Children are dying. It has been over 2 years. The Amhara children, they've never been to school. They've never been playing on the garden. They're not safe anymore. They can't even trust their own government. So the farmer cannot work on his field because he doesn't trust it. A doctor cannot treat his own people because he doesn't trust it. He has been told not to treat his people because the people has to suffer and die with hunger, with misery. A systematical and sabotage massacre is happening in Ethiopia against the Amhara people. That's why we all gather here. That's why we are shouting out and telling the UK government stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. We not say that the Ethiopian government or the whole government, the Abiy Ahmed region is a killer. He is a real killer. He is a threat to the whole world. He is a threat to the African nation. He is a threat to all human race. If the European Union, the United Kingdom government, United Nations, and USA, if they don't act now, you are feeding a snake and you're keeping it in your own pocket. And then what will happen? It will venom you when the time comes. Stop, that's why we say, stop supporting Abiy Ahmed. This needs to be stopped. That's why we all gather here. We need the UK government to act now. ትዕይንቱ ይቀጥላል። ሁላችሁ መነቃቃት መቻል አለብን። ይሄ ለዓለም አቀፍ ማህበረሰብ የሚተላለፍ መልእክት ነው። ትልቅ መልእክት ነው። ታሪክ ነው እየሰራን ያለ ነው። እንዲህ አይነት ትዕይንቶች ይቀጥላሉ። የመጣን ሰዎች ያለንን ህብረትና አንድነት ማሳየት አለብን። ዓለም መስማት አለበት። ዛሬ ጋዜጠኞች ኤኒዋን ካን ቢ አ ጆርናሊስት ኤኒዋን ካን ቢ አ ሚዲያ ማን አናውቅም። ስለዚህ አክቲቭ ሆነ መስራት አለብን። አክቲቭ ሆነ መንቀሳቀስ አለብን። ድምፃችን ነው መሰማት ያለበት። ከዚህ በላይ መውጣት አለብን። ብዙ አማሮች አሉ፣ ቤታቸው ተደብቀው አሉ። መምጣት አለባቸው። ይሄ የእውነተኛ ነው። ተደብቀው ቁጭ ያሉ አሉ። አፍረው ከርተው በጥቅም ተደልለው የተደበቁ አሉ። መምጣት አለባቸው። በጣም ቁጥር ስፍር የሌለው አማራ አለ። አክብራችሁ ስለመጣችሁ ከልብ እናመሰግናለን። ይቀጥላል። This is a message to the mainstream media, which is the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, Sky, Rosa, Agence France Presse, and all these medias. I know you're voicing to the Ukrainian people, fair enough. I know you're voicing to the Palestine people, fair enough. But we want you to break your silence. We want you to do your job professionally, to respect your journalists, your job, to do your proper job, to let the whole world, the Amhara misery, the Amhara is people dying every day, in every corner. This needs to be stopped. And the media, you need to act now. That's why this is a message to the whole media, the main media, the mainstream, and before it gets too late, act now. Thank you.
ኢንሻአላህ በዚህ አጋጣሚ እንግዲህ ለአሚን በርሚንጋም ፋኖ ይሆናል ለብላን እህታችን ብለን ከቤልጅየም ድረስ የባለፈው ሰልፍ አልመጣም አሁን ሰልፉ አያመልጠኝም ብላ ከቤልጅየም የመጣችው ታጣናለች። እንግዲህ የበርሚንጋም ፋኖ ይሆናል ብላለችና ምዝግባችሁ አባል አረጋችሁ እናንተ በጣም ልታደንቃችሁ የምትወዳችሁ ከቤልጅየም የመጣችሁ ብዙ ጊዜ አውሮፓ ዩኒየን በር ላይ የምታስፈቅድልን በቀደም ከኛ ጋር ነበረች ነች ብለን እህታችን ከቤልጅየም የመጣች ለብቻ ታገል የቤልጅየም ፋኖ ነችና እናንተ ጥላ ኢየሱስ ይላል። ያው አሜሪካን ፋኖች ከተቀበሉሽ አይደለም፣ ለንደን ፋኖ ግን ተቀበሉ። አንድ መድረኩ ለእሷ ይስጣትና ፍፄ ይቀጥላል።
Thank you very much. Really, I'm proud of you, all Amara people. You know, today, Amara women, children are suffering. Not only suffering, but also dying by the terrorist government, especially by Abiy Ahmed and his team. They are restless for the last 7 years, killing Amhara, murdering Amhara. Killing by gun is normal, but really cutting the womb of a woman is really inhuman. What's happening in Amhara people is really terrifying. I personally demand the whole world to stand beside the Amhara people. Amhara people need justice right away. UN and the government of UK, remember what happened to your ancestors during the Second World War. What happened to your grandpas, how they were suffering, how hunger, starvation, killing was really bad. So the same thing is happening now to Amhara people. There is an active genocide on Amhara in Ethiopia, which is supported and sponsored by the government of Ethiopia, particularly by Abiy Ahmed and his team, Branu Jula, Branu Naga. Killing Amhara is not only physically, but also systematically, by damaging schools, by damaging health centers, roads, infrastructure, everything. So we demand justice. We demand the whole world. Press is in prison. Not only journalists, but also the press itself is in prison right in this time. So we demand again, we inquire UK government to stand together with the Amhara to stop active genocide against Amhara. UK government, United Nations, no more genocide in your time. Your time. You need to stop sponsoring churches of drone attack on children is really inhuman. Drone attack, women, pregnant women, farmers, children in school is really inhuman. Stop terrorism in Ethiopia. በኋላ መልእክት ይኖረኛል ለእናንተና ለወገኖቻችሁ እያንዳንዳችሁ ከአማራ ክልልና ከአማራ ቤተሰብ የተወለዳችሁ የአክስት ልጅ፣ የአጎት ልጅ፣ አጎት ባድን ሆኖ ሚሊሻ ሆኖ የሚያስገድለን ወንድሞቻችን የራሳችን ስለሆኑ ከዚህ ድርጊት እንድናቆም መልእክታችሁን እንድታስተላልፉ ፐርሰናሊ ከቤተሰቦቻችን ብንጀምር የዚህ አስከፊ ስቃይ ቀማቂ መንግስት እድሜው ያልቃል። በፋኖቻችን መካከል የሚደረገው መከፋፈል የስቃያችንን እድሜ ያራዝመዋል እንጂ ለድል አያበቃምና ፋኖቻችን መሬት ላይ ሆነው ሕይወታቸውን መገበራቸው ካልቀረ ለምን አንድ ሆነው ዓላማን በተለያየ መልኩ ሳይሆን ዓላማን በአንድ መንገድ ተከትለው ለድል አብቅተው የአማራን ትንሣኤ እንዲያውጁ አመቻቹ ስለሆነ ነው። ፍሪ
Ethiopian. Yeah. Thank you.
Even today.